Welcome to the Rider's Edge podcast, a platform to share conversations about the health and wellness of horse and rider. I'm your host, Farley Schweigert. Hey y'all, it's Farley with Rider's Edge, and today I want to talk about Cinchy Horses. So today's conversation, I want to talk about Cinchy Horses, and I really want to come at the perspective of let's look at the whole picture. And again, kind of a little more, the more you know, the more we talk about these things when you're not in the heat of battle with this particular problem, I feel like it's easier to solve or easier to put the puzzle pieces together when you do encounter the issue. I particularly feel like that after having Charlie get hurt, and I think just learning and looking at things without the emotions of it being your horse is just super helpful, so that when it is your horse, we can systematically go after it. So let's look at a Cinchy horse. Cinchy horse can be indicative of a number of things. A number of things can have them act out right there. So before you run out and go through all the cinches, there are a great number of cinches out there on the market. Let's talk about cinches for a second. First off, make sure the cinch that you are using is clean on the side that goes next to the horse. A lot of us are guilty of not paying attention to the cleanliness of our cinches, and that can cause irritation. That can cause slight irritation to increased friction, all the way up to sores through there. And if you get a sore in that cinch area, you're gonna be sidelined for a while to treat it properly, because you need it to heal, and then you need the sensitivity to heal. So double checking that is super important. Staying in the spot of the cinch, making sure you are cinching up at the right area is important as well. And that ties into how you saddle your horse, making sure you're not saddling your horse too far forward on their back, that their saddle is too much on the wither. Saddles should fit behind the shoulder to allow that shoulder to extend and move. And that changes where the placement of your cinch is. So we don't want to cinch too close to the elbow or the back of the shoulder of the horse. It's going to be further back towards their hip than that. Naturally, if you are saddling further behind the shoulder, how the rigging of the saddle set up, it's going to naturally take your cinch further back and allow for that full extension through the shoulder complex and everything. Cinches, for me personally, I like natural fibers. I ride in 100% mohair cinches from Bird Eye Braiding. Bird Eye Braiding is my mom, who braids cinches and breast collars and puts designs and does all the pretty colors. So check her out on Facebook if you're in the market for a new cinch or breast collar. She would love to help design one for you. And colors are fun. Cinches and breast collars have gotten fun in the last 5-8 years with all the different colors of mohair. A lot of people will use a more synthetic cinch, whether it is part natural, part synthetic fiber. People often will mistake that they have 100% mohair or 100% natural fiber cinch when it's actually a combination. Natural fibers are more expensive, when you're pricing them out. Natural fibers, natural fiber products are more expensive on the price scale, and for obvious reasons. Rubber cinches, have their place, and for a lot of people they work. And so, if that works for your situation, that's fabulous. They, for horses that, you kind of need to get maybe a bind a little bit right there. Maybe you have a horse that's very mutton withered, and that works for you. And if you don't have any soreness or any sensitivity there, then that's great. That's the beauty of our industry, right? We have multiple products to work for multiple situations. For me, I'm a natural fiber girl, but I'm also a big fan of if it works, let's use it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So moving up from the cinch, let's talk about your saddle fit. I've done 2 podcasts about saddle fit on here, and I can tell you that there will be more conversations. That has been a high topic of conversation for me lately with a lot of different people. So look out for more insight on that in the coming months as we'll talk to different people about that. It's kind of hard to put that in this medium of a podcast and just have a verbal discussion without having the visual aspect of it, but we make it work as best we can. So talking about saddle fit, making sure your saddle fits. And for me, saddle fit is almost as tricky as shoeing, and recognizing and understanding and knowing more about a proper shoeing job. Saddle fit should, if you are in any doubt, talk to somebody. A lot of these saddle makers will do saddle fits. A lot of saddle shops will do saddle fits as well. Shops that sell multiple brands of saddles and such. If you have any questions about that, get some help with it, because it can be challenging. So in my brain, I put saddle fit in a percentage of how well it fits. Particularly if we're working through production made saddles, and we're not talking about custom saddles made for a specific horse. Does it fit 100%? Does it fit in that 80 to 90% range? I feel like most of the time you can pad through a 70 to 80% fit. And if you're kind of between that below 70, more than likely you're going to get some soreness somewhere, honestly. And so saddles are tricky. Saddles are so tricky. But it could be you have the right cinch, you could be saddling in the right spot, and you have a pressure point right there at that first concho, at that point of the shoulder. Because in our anatomy of the horse, we have a trapezius muscle. We have them in people too. They're your muscles that get real tight in your shoulder. Like when you get a shoulder massage right here, connected to your neck. That's your trapezius. And that muscle actually goes, in people, it goes from your neck across the back of your shoulder and down through your back a little bit, and makes a trapezoidal type shape, hence the name. Same thing in a horse. And that muscle starts before the withers and expands back behind the withers, through where that pressure point is, and has some referral pain down into the cinch area. So it could be a pressure point there. It could be a pressure point throughout the back, right through there. We know that we saddle and we ride our horses at the weakest aspect of their back. So any pressure through there could cause them to act cinchy, when you're saddling them. Issues throughout their back could be the rib, the thoracic rib junction. And, if you've ever had your horse chiropractored on and they've said, well, your rib was out. What that really means is where that joint, there's a joint where your rib meets the thoracic spine and sits in there, and it was out of alignment. Your rib wasn't actually out of socket, it was just out of alignment and causing pain through there. Those muscles along the back of the horse are, there's a lot of them, and they're very narrow and go along the whole spine. So you can have some issues there, and that can refer pain and cause them to do that, because like we know, horses can't talk to us, and so they communicate with us. They can't talk with us to us with their words. They communicate to us in other ways, and it's up to us to figure out what they're telling us. So it could be some chiropractic type, osteopathic type issues through the alignment of the vertebrae or the alignment of the ribs on the vertebrae, something like that. Again, having a physical therapist, having an osteopath or a chiropractor, and sometimes even an acupuncturist can help with some of those holistic type treatments of seeing the whole picture in the whole body, because everything is connected. Everything is connected, which is really cool when you're investigating it and helping figure out how to help a horse or person with their current issue and helping them get towards their goal. But it can be super frustrating for the client in the middle of things. So, saddle fit's a tricky thing. And depending upon what percentage of saddle fit you are in, you may or may not be able to pad your way out of that. And that can get pricey too. Pads are not the cheapest thing anymore. We have a lot of combinations and a lot of things that you can work through. So it may or may not be the answer for that situation. Other issues of pain anatomically for the horse that's having cinchy symptoms. Studies have shown in foals that rib abnormality is actually kind of high. It's over in one study that looked at over 236 foals for thoracic rib cage trauma after birth. Over 20% of those foals had rib cage asymmetry, and 5% of those foals had rib fractures. That's not something that we typically look for in our foals because we're not saddling them. As long as they stand up and nurse and run around and they're healthy, we let them grow up. And if they happen to grow up with some rib asymmetry, it can definitely be overcome, but it's just how that horse is made. If you've ever broken your ribs, I hope that you haven't, but if you have, there's no surgery for them. We have to let them naturally heal, because our ribs, whether we're talking about horses or people, are in constant flux. They constantly have a small amount of movement because they expand and contract to allow us to breathe. And so that healing takes forever and is highly painful, but often it will lead to some rib asymmetry. And it may be a small difference and it may be a large difference depending upon the situation, but same thing in our horses. It's just how that horse ends up healing and growing. it may not be an issue ever for that horse, and it may be a significant issue that you have to work around. So I thought that was very interesting in looking at that, because I hadn't really thought about the trauma that foals go through at birth for their rib cage. So anatomically also, it could be an issue in the shoulder. And that kind of ties into saddle fit often. The shoulder complex in horses is even less stable than it is in people. And the shoulder complex is only held onto the body by soft tissue. So having some tightness in that shoulder, whether it's behind the scapula or in between the scapula and the rib cage, underneath the scapula, anywhere through there, that can get compressed as we're saddling our horses and cause some referral pain and symptoms. It can even go further down the chain into the low back, into the SI, and cause issues that will cause them to, be cranky when you saddle. Things that you can do when you're saddling is get that cinch. Don't bail into them, right? Don't, when you first saddle, just cinch it up as tight as you're going to go. Get it firm, walk them out to the arena or walk them down a ways, then finish cinching them up. And then for what I do is I still walk, after I cinch them up and I'm ready to get on, I walk them another 2 strides forward, and then I get on. I don't just bail into them, get them cinched up, and then hop on. I give them another step to relax and adjust, and then I get on. Make sure you're also pulling your saddle pad up through the pommel of your saddle when you saddle them. That relieves the pressure over the withers, because if you don't do that and you have them cinched tight, the saddle pad is compressing down over the withers. That is decreasing the ability to move there, causing tension, surface tension through there, and can lead to saddle sores and trigger points and tightness through there as well. Other systemic causes for cinchiness could be ulcers. Could be ulcers anywhere through the GI tract, whether we're talking about hindgut or foregut ulcers, could be an issue through there. And as you well know, ulcers are a tricky thing to diagnose without going through a scope, and horses can really communicate with us in various ways to get us to understand that ulcers are the problem. So ulcers can be a systemic issue, along with all the anatomical orthopedic issues that we've talked about today. A lot of different things to think about as you're trying to work through these problems and see how you can make this better. One thing's for sure, though, you've got to find the cause of the problem, because if you don't, you will create a fear-based habit, and those are very hard to break. So whether it is rest and time off, whether it is consulting with your physical therapist, your veterinarian, or your team, or even getting an outsider's perspective of your routine. It may be something as simple as changing that up that would cause your horse some relief. Lots of different things to think about with a cinchy horse. Hopefully, having a discussion about that now will help you later on down the road to find some things to address and shorten the time it takes to get the answer. So, as always, I appreciate you hanging out with me for the conversation, and I will see you down the road.
Thank you for listening to Rider's Edge Podcast. For show notes and other thoughts, head over to ridersedgetherapy.com. If you would like to stay connected and continue the conversation, head over to my free Facebook group, Rider's Edge Health and Wellness for Horse and Rider. Thanks for continuing the conversation, and as always, I will see you down the road.